So, the doshas and meal planning. So let's start to look at how this relates to food. So we've seen a lot of qualities and characteristics. Now I highly encourage you to predominantly use those, the qualities and the characteristics. But here we've got a 6 medicinal tastes food pyramid. Thanks to a lovely graphic designer I've been working with in Bandung, she created this beautiful 6 medicinal tastes food pyramid. I've never seen one like it before. So at the bottom, we have the sweet taste. We can see that the sweet taste is more than just sweet fruits or sugars. It's all of this complex nutrition. So we've got durian, all of this. There's so many sweet things, meat. All of them come under this sweet taste. Now you've got a full color copy of this inside your manual as well. So now this is what we need to build because we are form. Although we're spirit too, we need to keep this body going. So we need to have predominantly this sweet taste. We don't need to have everything that we see up there. If you're on a raw foods diet, you could be using nuts, seeds, legumes, durian, fruit, to be that sweet dominant taste. Now, what dosha is dominant is going to define which sweet tastes you're going to have to try and use. Which ones are going to be the most useful for your body type and your constitution. We all need the sour taste. Here in the tropics, it's going to be more in citrus, limes. Now, because the more we ferment into an alcohol, the more heating the sour taste becomes. So you really don't need much alcohols in this climate. You really don't need a lot of fermented foods. You really don't need much fish sauce because it's fermented as well. All of these fermented foods are heating. A little bit of citrus is enough. A little bit of lime juice is enough to get that sour taste in this sort of climate, especially if pitta is really high. Whereas if you're in the cold climate, a Scandinavian country, a little bit of alcohol can be great for that climate because it's more heating. It increases digestion. Now, if we look at what's the highest consumption of alcohol on the planet, Finland, Scandinavian country. Now, they do consume it in excess because they've gotten to the point where it's now an addiction as well. But it was still something that was balanced and needed for that climate. The next tastes, we've got these 4 up here, are only small amounts of what we need to include. And really, they help us digest sweet. If you're not including these, you can't digest these. So the salty taste enables us to hold on to the nutrition that's there. It holds things and draws things in. You know that meal that you've made and it's like, oh, I made it all perfectly. I got this spice and the right amount of oil. I cooked it just right. And then I tasted it at the end. It was like, oh, I forgot the salt. Because the salt is what allows you to properly absorb that. You couldn't even taste it properly without that little bit of salt that was there. Too much salt and you're going to absorb way too much. This sweet is going to get stuck in the tissues. It's just the right amount. Vata is going to need more salt because it's one of the tastes that balances them. Pitta and kapha are going to need less salt to be able to absorb and utilize. The pungent taste creates the transformation, the change. So really important to be able to transform these foods, to burn them. So we want to use more of the neutral pungents, not extreme, pure tastes like chili. More of ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, fennel. There's a huge list of digestive spices in the dosha sections. The bitter taste is what allows us to strip things out. It draws things out of the body. It's because of lots of raw leafy greens that would have had a bit of the bitter taste in it that your body went into cleanse. Push it out, push it out. The bitter is often laxative, like aloe vera, it's a laxative. Coffee, it's a laxative. They push things out of the body. We need to make sure things are pushing out so that we can absorb more sweet. The astringent taste holds the tissues together so that you've got a wall between your digestive tract and your blood. Otherwise, there's no building there and the sweet is just moving everywhere. So they're all important. We need to include them all. So doshas throughout the lifespan. The first stage of life is a building phase. It's more dominant with kapha. You think of this, it's like soft, round curves. What's the main imbalance that babies get? Mucus. You know? They build up so much mucus. They might as well be called little mucus factories. They're constantly producing mucus. So we don't really want to give them a lot of cheese, you know, or heaps of meats and heavy proteins. Although we could say, oh, milk, that's kapha, isn't it? But if you look at breast milk, it's really quite light. It's nowhere near as heavy as cow milk. It's quite light, and what temperature is it? Warm. They need to have warm foods, little bits of light things. You start them on fruits, but then you build them up as they start to move closer and closer towards the next stage of life, which is pitta. Now their fire is building. It's not like a direct change. 16, oh, now you're pitta. It's something that's happening over time. All of life is all three. But when the hormones start, which for some people is 12 years old, then pitta starts to take the lead from that point onwards. So then we're going to have to integrate more of the cooling foods. Leafy greens need to be dominant in this stage of life. Now, for those that have children, they know when children get to this stage, it's like, oh, now I'm pitta. My decision, my direction, what do I want to do? This is my thing. I'm angry about that. I'm a rebel. All of these qualities of pitta. What should we do? Leafy greens. We need to try and balance that out as much as we can. A little bit of a sweet fruit. Have you had your afternoon snack of sweet fruit today? Try and balance those qualities. How else can we balance it? With love, you know, acceptance of what they are. If they're in school and they're like, I've got this assignment, that, and they're using their mind and all of these things, overloaded, the pitta is just going to build up. So how can we take out some of those tasks is important. The next stage of life is the vata stage of life. So it's the separating, the letting go. We've got the old man here and he looks very dry. Remembering one of the qualities of vata is dryness. So it starts to dry the tissues of the body, letting for that separating cycle. They're going to need more carbohydrates, more fats, more proteins at this stage of life, but their digestion may also be less. So they might need them in smaller quantities at multiple intervals over the day. Dosha plates here. So another wonderful thing that our graphic designer has done, you've got the PDF of this inside your manual, and we can see the vata plate on this side. It's more of a winter plate. It's more of a building cycle. That doesn't mean that you can't use it in the tropics. You totally can, especially if you've got dominant vata. Or you could say, oh, it's the coldest time of the year here, so I'm going to use a little bit more of that. There's a lot more grains on this plate, cooked whole grains with added good oils. So we can see this oily portion here. Might have been a bit of ghee, a bit of sesame oil could have been really good for the vata type. Now the protein portion here was about 30%. Now it could be from flesh bases or from plant bases. Now we can see a little bit of nuts, we can see some flesh here as well. Now we also have the vegetable portion over this side. Now although it's very green and vibrant, the vata dominant could have that from cooked. It could be cooked spinach, cooked other things. Vata could have almost 100% cooked plate and it still be really balancing to them. They don't need to eat much raw food. The more that it's in a really cold climate, the more that they may need 100% raw plate. Does that mean they don't eat anything raw over the day? Definitely not. Even in the cold winter, there's still some fruits that you can get as well. Generally oranges or something like that that you could have in the afternoon. They still need that fresh and that raw, but they don't need it at every meal. Now, they also had a little bit of spices. Although they're chili, we really wouldn't want so much chili. We want the more complex ones. The pitta plate, it's more of a summer plate. It's a regulating cycle. So this is what balances pitta. Now we've got some white carbohydrates. Now, in our modern nutrition, they're all like white rice, bad. You need to have whole brown rice. It's so much better. it's not bad. It's not good or bad. It's qualities and characteristics. What are the qualities? Yes, there is less nutrition inside the white rice, but it's also more cooling. So in this heat, we use a lot of white rice in the tropics all around the world. They use white rice. So it can be quite good for this climate if used in proportion. Still, you've got to include some whole grains as well. You can't just eat white rice. So we see this of a balance with this. It doesn't mean that it needs to take place in the same meal though. It could be white rice at one meal, whole grain red rice at another meal. You'll see with our lunch we've given you the option of both. There's more of the vegetable portion to this plate, a little bit less of the protein portion compared to the vata, but now plenty of raw leafy greens. The pitta, because it's got lots of heat, we can now bring in loads of the raw leafy greens. Now at certain times you might just want to have a whole meal of raw, and that's totally fine if you've got a lot of pitta, if you're in the tropics. But if you want to be balanced long term, for most constitutions, unless they're like flaming pitta, then they probably still need to integrate a little bit of these other grounding carbohydrates elements. The protein portion here, they've got hardly any meat for this portion. More of the plant-based sources. As we move into the kapha, it's the spring plate. It's the cleansing plate. They need to let go more than they do to build. So in this cycle, we've got hardly any of the carbohydrates. It's the dosha that could do the best on a no carbohydrate diet, no grains, for quite a long period of time, especially in the spring, when it's starting to get a little bit warmer and it's coming out of your hottest time of the year. Now that could happen twice a year in the tropics. But whenever you're going, it's coming from a little bit colder to a little bit warmer, that's the time when you could go, I'm going to cut out grains for a while. I'm going to do something that's more raw. I'm going to cut out meat. You'll see there's no meat on this plate. The kapha really does well with a no meat diet. So 30% cooked whole grains, 20% protein, light vegetables, both raw and cooked, are suitable for this one. Spicy, now we can get into some warm spices. A bit more chili is suitable for that. Squeeze of lime juice, they've all got a little bit of lime. This one's got less. It's still written amongst there. It should be a little squeeze as well.